Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. We are in the studio today.
Every time we're in the studio, I feel like newscasters.
I do.
Like we need a little thing across the bottom. It's like breaking news.
That's true.
Can we have that added in
It
now?
does feel like a really big production. I like the podcast. I like wearing the headsets.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whenever we've done shows in the studio, I always end up in my pajamas for some reason. So today I was like, I'm wearing a t-shirt, but I'll throw on some like cute shoes or something because it is full body today, so I don't look like I'm really living the quarantine life. You know?
I'm so sorry. I had to get an oil change, and then they told me that there's a hole in my oil pan thing, and it's leaking. So
I was wondering why you got a rental. I'm like, it must be taking longer than they anticipated.
It's gonna take all damn day. Isn't it funny though how some projects, it's almost you're like, this won't take that long, and then once you get into
you put it off till you have a hole in your oil.
Okay, in my defense, I don't know how that got there. I'm gonna blame the roads of Laguna because some of them dip so hard and my car sits
Wait
low.
to take accountability for your
no accountability for my shitty ass driving.
Hey, let's just talk about that. Let's go there. How many projects? Okay, shitty ass driving. Yes, I've seen you drive, and I'm like, oh, scary.
Okay, for future, I'm not a bad driver. I'm a fast driver.
Yeah, well, you have a little speedy car, so I get it. But let's talk about that. Like things that we know we need to get done, and even as simple as like, God, my car service light has been on for a month, 2 months, 3 months. You're like, my car service light has been on for 8 months. And now it's not like one service light, it's like 7. And that is what projects do. They compile up on each other. And then you're like, I don't know where to start. Or you said the perfect thing. You're like, think about when your house is really messy, but it's because like you missed a week of laundry and then like the dishes pile up and then it slowly compounds on each other to where you're like, I don't know where to start.
Where you look around and you're like, that's messy, that's dirty. Oh my God, I think one of the kids, is that orange juice? Is that poop on the floor? Like, what is that? You don't even know. Is it bunny poop? I don't know. Is it mud? We never know some days.
My baby started crawling. She's 9 months old. And like one day, legit, I got a bunny, and sometimes I let it hop around the house, and I legit looked over, and I was like, I think that's a bunny poop. And by the time I got over there, I was like, it's too late. She ate a bunny poop. But,
my older brother put a cockroach in his mouth when he was little. Oh. So, grosser things have happened.
What's weird is she was like, and then I'm like, but you ate it.
She's like, what? That's what a little chocolate sprinkle looks like.
I don't know.
But it's crazy. Like you all of a sudden start looking around your house and you're like, everything's dirty, where you're almost like, I should just buy a new house. I'll burn this one down. Like it's overwhelming.
Right. And you know what I was thinking too, like with what's going on in all this downtime, we had a student who was even saying like, I'm feeling not motivated. Like I know what I need to do, kind of like, I don't know where to start, but I know what I need to do. And I'm just feeling unmotivated. And I think we sometimes feel unmotivated when we feel a little bit overwhelmed.
Yes.
And I also think too, like, I would guarantee you that a lot of times we mask things that we need to do because we're behind the chair and we're bringing in income and that kind of thing. So we have an excuse to saying like, well, I'm not doing these projects because I'm doing, because I'm behind the chair. And so for some reason it makes okay that you're not doing like X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? But the minute we're in quarantine and you have this time, all of a sudden this guilt sets in because you're like, well, shit. But the reality is you just don't want to do those things because you just don't know where to start, but now you don't have an excuse.
Well, and it's so crazy, even like, because I'll give the perfect example, because I clean my house every week. I love it. I even have like a wet vacuum where I like clean my carpet. I love a clean house. Like that's just how I was raised. And even then, so the dealership called me 2 weeks ago and they were like, hey, we got the update. It's time to get the year thing. And I'm like, voicemail. And I just never called them back. I didn't do anything, even though I knew. And the whole thing, I'm like, I don't have time to go. By the way, it's 10 miles from my house. Like it's 20-minute drive.
Bad.
It's so close. But I'm like, I don't have time because then if I go there, I'm gonna have to sit there all day and I can't do that. And I want to clean my house. I'm just gonna clean instead and put that off till later.
Right.
Okay, well, they'll give you a loaner car if you just ask for one, or they'll literally pay for your Uber home.
Right.
Like, it's such a simple thing, but I kept telling myself all these stories. Why? Because I just didn't want to do it.
Well, and in your mind, you're thinking like, it takes all day, but you didn't consider like, they get a loaner car or this and that.
Yes.
And then sometimes I think like projects like that, they just like weigh on your shoulders.
Every time I would get in my car, I'd be like, oh man. And they called me every day for a week. And I was like, voicemail. And it was like, Irvine, California. I'm like, voicemail. And I knew what it was, but it's true. It starts weighing on you and then you feel bad. And it's almost like it's like a little weight on your shoulder that you can never get rid of until you finally deal with it.
Well, and you know what's so funny? In my business, actually, like when I first started, even when I was, let's say, a new salon owner, like I didn't have a lot of systems and processes. And before that, I was just like like every artist is out there, you're hustling with your DMs, you might email, but you're just usually on your phone texting whatever, this and that. Like your books are full, but you are a slave to your cell phone because we don't have systems and processes. So yeah, I knew how to get clients behind the chair. I knew how to sell. I knew how to sell people, and I had no problem with that. But then I decided to become a salon owner. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like
I'm already good at hair.
I'm already good at hair. I'm good at selling. I'm good at hustling. My books are full. I should probably own a salon. Turns out that you need a lot of systems and processes inside of owning a salon. So for years, I think for the first year I opened a salon, and this goes for any business owner, I'm sure. Like your first year, you're like, what the fuck? That was cute and kind of fun. And I learned.
I'm a good time. Okay.
I learned a lot. And I think that I knew I needed systems and processes, but I was like so used to the hustle. So instead of like taking a step back and creating processes, things kind of got really scary and unorganized and this. And like literally at one point for my clients, because I was like, well, I need to get, a software. I'm going to get MindBody. And the whole point of having MindBody is to keep your clients organized, having their emails, their birth dates, all their information. I got the software, check, did that. I bought that. I paid for it.
Nailed it.
Paid for it monthly. But then when you would go look at my clients' information, it would be like, Sally at idk.com. And I was like, what is IDK?
I don't know.
Literally, my assistant was like, oh, you never told me to take her email, so I just wrote IDK. And I was like, that's fine. That's fine. So I feel like a lot of times there's doing the actual work and like buying the systems to like do it. And I think we think, oh, I bought the education, check.
That doesn't buying work. Something doesn't make you good at something. And I think that it's like a gym membership. Like I'm guilty of that. Have you ever bought a gym membership and never gone? Or gone like a couple times?
I do. I have 2 gym memberships that I don't currently use because I've been working with a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And I still think, but you know
what? They have a great pool in the summer.
Yes.
Like, that gets me. But everybody's guilty of it. We're like, okay, that's it. I'm getting in shape. I'm going to the gym. And you buy membership. You're like, oh, I nailed it. Got a membership. What's Tiger King? What's on Netflix?
But why do we do that?
Because I think we realize that it's one step, but then doing the work of actually getting up early, because I get up at 5, so to go to the gym, I need to be getting up at 4:45, 4:30. Right. It's getting up earlier, getting dressed, driving to the gym, doing the workout is what's hard for me. Yeah. And then coming back home, now you're sweaty, and then we tend to look at it as like, one thing of like, go to the gym, get in shape, now became go to the gym, get up early, then you have to shower, and now you have to shampoo. And we feel it becomes overwhelming as opposed to being like, it actually only takes 45 minutes to do all of that.
And I think it's prioritizing your time. So that is really the biggest thing. So I work out 6 days a week right now, and I work out pretty hard. And the funny thing is there's days where I'm like, I don't want to work out. But I kind of put it in my mind of like, it's not an option. Mm-hmm. So I think that if you look at a task like that, like, hey, this is part of my routine, this is part of my time management, and it's not an option, you'll get going in your workout or whatever it is, or like learning a new software, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is kind of fun because you understand it, you become better at it. Like, I don't know if you felt like this, but I went to hair school. I was young when I went to hair school. I think I was 18. I was doing hair by the time I was 19. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I think things shift as we get older, but at the time when I'm 19, I was like, I don't want to do hair. I had the biggest pit in my stomach because I was like, I'm going to screw up their hair. I'm going to fry it off. And I'm not like, I'm kind of introverted. Like, even like having somebody sit there and like have to carry on a conversation and try to think about what I was doing, I physically was nauseous going to work. Like,
did I never tell you about the first haircut I did? I was terrified to do hair. Same. I went in at 18, licensed by 19, nailed it, everything. And the first guy who came in, he was a walk-in male client, and it was super simple and easy. My hands were shaking the whole time. I was like, oh my God, I'm literally in my head.
His haircut looked like steps?
It was a good cut. Did he ever come back to me? No, because he could see my hands were shaking. I was so scared.
Oh, geez.
Literally, it was just pure fear. And I was like, I can't do this. This is no way. But it's just, you just have to start somewhere.
Right. But that's what's so funny.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure then once you kind of get more comfortable and you get in the routine, it's like, it's not an option to not go to work. You're like, I got my license. Like,
I have to.
I'm going to do this.
I have to pay these loans
I got to pay these bills. And I have a lot of friends that went to hair school and they're like, hair's not for me. I'm like, it's because you didn't get out of like the gnarly phase. Like, it's kind of scary. It's new. Like, you're going to fuck hair up. Like, it's not if, it's when.
It's when.
It's when.
I'm sorry to tell you.
And so they're like,
when.
oh, it's not for me. And I'm like, yeah, you got to like.
You're still in the fucking it up stage.
You got to get good at something. And then when you get good, you're like, psh, like you like nailed it.
Honestly,
like,
it's even like going to the gym at first. The first workout, the next day you're like, and please, if you want to see us, go to dkdelegate.com. But at first, the next day you're like, I didn't even know I had this muscle. Like any move you make, it hurts. And that's when you stop doing it because you're like, it hurts too much. Well, you have to get out of the stage where it's going to hurt. You have to get out of the stage where it's getting scary. And I know it takes time to do that, but it's literally just taking one step. Even like the house example we just used, if you're looking at your house and you're like, oh my God, everything's dirty, start with dishes. Just put dishes away. Clean dishes. And I feel once you start doing one thing, it starts going towards another. One of our artists, we have a private network that we used to talk to them, just posted this big thing. And she's like, I've been such an asshole this whole quarantine. I've been like, I don't have time. I'm too busy. She goes, the truth is, I've been sitting on my couch drinking wine and chilling on my phone for like hours a day doing nothing. She's like, God. Yeah. And she's like, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'm going to have to admit this to my husband. Like I do nothing all day long. I'm so sorry. And she's like, but now I realize like, dude, you're being such an a-hole. Like it's time to get it together. So she's like, so now I'm starting to like work on my mannequin again and do this and that. And there's about 45 trainings she's probably behind on. Like she has to catch up, but you just start somewhere.
It's so funny because like I wake up and if I'm like in a funk, like I make myself like create projects. Like I'm like, where am I at? Because if you wake up and you're in a funk, it's like it kind of spirals, and then you might be having a glass of wine at 1 PM, and next thing you know, you're like, "Whoa, cool! I've been drinking all day and watching Netflix and doing nothing." And honestly, for me, because I have kids, I have a newborn. Like it's not even. I'm like,
that's not an option.
No, I have to take care of my 9-month-old baby. But I still find myself she eats bunny poop, but that's another story. But I still find myself, like even today I woke up and it was kind of gloomy and I was like, I don't want to work out. And I was like, no, get your ass out of bed. I just started my routine, got my workout done. And now I'm like, all of a sudden, because I got that part out of the way, I was like, oh, you know what else? I could do this and this, and I've been needing to do this. And so I think it's just starting. I think that is the hardest thing and the biggest thing we could stress right now is people in general, they think about all the things they have to do and they're visualizing like the 10th step and you're like, stop it. Like just start and see where it goes. And that's the difference between successful people and people that stay put, is the successful people are constantly innovating, they're constantly starting, they're constantly going. And so you have to stop like letting these projects weigh on you and think, okay, well, how do I start this? And I'm not like, there's a lot of things that I start and I'm like, oh God, I'm not gonna do that. But I'm like, but you know who is gonna do that? Ani's gonna do that. Or you know who's gonna do that? Crystal's gonna do that for me. Because I know it needs to be done, and I know that I have people on my team that want to win as well. And I'm like, I suck at this technology thing, but I know you know how to do it. So can you do this project for me? And you're like, yeah, totally.
But you know what? Even perfect example, DKW Academy, when it was created, I did all the technology behind it.
And you almost cried.
No, not almost. Ooh, girl. When I deleted it the first time by accident, I broke down. When I found out the second time, I had to start it from scratch 2 weeks from the preview date because the technology I thought it could do, it doesn't matter. Point is,
but you didn't have an option.
There was literally no option. When I realized I had to restart from scratch, there was no copy, no paste, I can jig and adjust. It was literally delete it all, restart. I looked at it and I went,
I remember one day I looked at you at the salon because I'm like, hey, you were like, I've got this project, I don't know how to do it, but I can learn it. Like, because we were transitioning teams and this was like kind of on your plate. And I'm like, you got it. And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, are you sure? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, I've heard that software is a bitch. I'm just going to.
No, I got it. And I'm like, Danielle, don't worry about it. I got it.
And then one day I came into the salon and you were crying. And I was like, Ani, I need a really direct answer. And you were like, I got it. I was like, okay.
But it's so crazy. And the why overwhelmed me, and let it be known, I'm good with technology. Like I grew up in a very tech savvy household, but even looking at this, it was like, all of it was so foreign.
Yeah.
And that's part of what made it scary. And I feel like if you're just learning NBR, you completely understand that. If you're new to hair, everything is terrifying because it's so foreign and new. And then once I got in it, and I'm one of those, look, I'm just gonna click every button.
Right.
Fuck it. If it turns out this is a disaster, I will delete my entire account and restart. I don't care what I have to do. And I literally started clicking and figuring out. I was Googling a lot, emailing support. And then by the time I was like, wait, this is it? I'm like, oh my God, it's actually not remotely as scary as I thought. And now I'm even in a system where Danielle and I were talking yesterday and we're like, oh my God, we have to replace these videos. I'm like, dude, I can do that. It's super easy. And now I'm in such a flow and rhythm. I don't think twice about it. It's literally become muscle memory of what needs to be turned off, turned on, but edited.
It takes you a minute, but once you do it, you're so much more self-reliant.
Oh yeah.
Like it's in the beginning, you're like, and it kind of goes back to like when you're younger or when you're first in business, like you kind of like say it's not an option. And for some reason, as we get older and more into our craft and whatever it is, it's like you can't teach an old dog new tricks or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And it's because you've gotten good at one thing. So your saving grace is like, I'm a really good artist. But are you a really good artist that's fairly business savvy? Are you a really good artist that is either so many like tech savvy, or you know, there's so many avenues that you're like, stop hiding behind being good at just one thing, because nobody cares. Like, let's be real. Like, you can be the best, most phenomenal singer on the planet, but that's not the only thing that gets a successful artist to the top or gets them, you know, to like win Grammys or whatever it is. They have multiple things that they became good at. And I genuinely believe that. And so I find myself when I'm like annoyed, like I get annoyed when I don't understand something, and I don't need to know like everything about everything, but I have to know enough.
See, and I'm almost the opposite. I'm like, I want to know everything. And that's what can send me over the ledge sometimes, especially because I am good at technology. I'm like, I want to know it. I want to know it right now. And there's so many artists that are like that. And they're like, okay, fine. I know there's even like in the academy when we're like, hey, there's a flow to the reason we have the trainings like this. And they're like, yeah, but what about this? I'm like, you're not there yet. They're like, no, I am. I'm like, no, you're really not. Trust me. And I sympathize and like empathize with that, because I'm the same way. I'm like, no, give it all to me. I won't be overwhelmed.
I'm ready.
I'm like, I swear I won't be overwhelmed. Then my eyes start twitching and everyone's like, you look overwhelmed. I'm like, no. But it's once you dive in, if you take it a step at a time, it is so much easier to not actually be afraid of something.
You've gotten better at that though, I will say, because like last year I was like, Ani, like I know you can handle a lot, but I also need you to understand, like, it's okay to kind of delegate, because if you're bugging out, if you're in that place where you're like, I can handle it, it's not about how much you can handle. At that point, I was like, it's kind of risky for my business knowing there's so much on your plate, and I'd rather hire people to help assist you. But I think that we do that in the beginning because it's like our baby. You know what I mean? And even though it's like not your company, it was like you were there from like the beginning of BMS. And so like you helped kind of build it. And so it kind of was your baby. So it was like hard to like relinquish control. I was like, I need you to understand that if you don't, the students won't win. And in the end, we want the students to win. And I think when you see the big picture, you're like, it hurts, but okay, like knowing your boundaries.
And I feel even part of it is that, and at least I can say from my experience, it's been, well, if I can't do all of it, does that mean I'm bad at my job? Does that mean I failed somehow? And I think you've experienced that with the salon, and then being a mom and being an artist, you had to do all of it, and relinquishing some of that control is so hard in the beginning, because you almost feel like, oh, well, if I can't do it all, then I failed. But it's not even it's crazy, because it's literally
you're already
not even
failing.
about that.
You're already failing.
You're
like
already.
I talk to so many business owners that are like, their business is not doing as successful as they want it to be, but they're like holding on to the reins. And I'm like, it's already failing. It's not that profitable. Like, what do you have to lose at this point? And I think it's like really having like a come to Jesus moment with yourself. And I even felt like I've had multiple times in my career where I'm like, this isn't working, so burn it or fix it. And when I like look at it like that, I'm like, okay, well then I have to do things differently in order for this to be successful. And if you just continue to like do the same stuff that's not really working productively, it doesn't work.
Well, and it's fascinating because I know there's the flip side of artists that they're like, yeah, but my salon is successful, and that's amazing. But if you're having success in business, but you're slowly dying on the inside, or you have no free time, you don't have time to have dinner with your husband, your wife, your kids, have a girls' night, there's no such thing as like taking a day and sitting at the beach, or like going hiking, whatever it is you love, I hate to break it to you, you're not winning. Like you're still failing, because you as a human being, you're putting so much into your work that you're not able to actually enjoy any of the benefits and the profits of having built such a successful business.
Right.
Like that's why there has to be that balance of, and that's why even for me, there have been points where I'm like, I have to let go, because it was literally work 24/7. I would wake up at 4:30. I was messaging students by 4:45. And the joke was, they're like, do you sleep? I'm like, what's sleep? No, what is it? Like it got so bad that I was like, I can't.
I think when I felt overwhelmed, one of the biggest mistakes I made inside of my career is when I felt overwhelmed, I would just pass off a task to whoever was available. Like take for example, like I have kids, and there's been times where I was like so desperate for a babysitter that like I hired the 80-year-old grandma next door, and now I'm like, I must have been that was bad. Why didn't I just do some research and find like a qualified, I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God.
I legit had this like super old lady, and my kids later were like, yeah, she would like fall asleep on the couch. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but it's because I just was like settling. I was like overwhelmed. I needed help. And I just was like settling. And so that was like one of the biggest mistakes I had in my career is I would wait till I was underwater because I didn't want to relinquish control. Yeah. And then anybody that was like, can I help? Like, did you know my first assistant? I knew I needed an assistant. And my first assistant was this guy that like, he was a nice guy, but he wasn't like, he wasn't like a very fast worker. He wasn't like, he just like, I'm like very like, go.
Yeah, I know.
And he came up to me and he's like, hey, you look like really busy. Can I be your assistant? And I was like, thank God, yes, you can. And that's how I hired my first assistant. Because I was so drowning. I didn't research. I didn't like try somebody out. Now we have like, if I even consider having an assistant, I'm like, you get to work with me for a day. We see if I vibe with you.
There's a process.
I want to see your workflow, like everything. But I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we make is we wait till we're underwater and then we're so desperate that we just cling to anybody who's right there. We're like, you'll do.
Literally
you'll do.
anybody.
It's like a rebound. Like think of it as like a rebound. Do not rebound in your business life, please, because it'll end up exactly like a rebound in your personal life.
I should also say, don't rebound in your personal life.
Don't rebound. That's what I'm saying. If you rebound in your business life, you're going to get exactly what you rebounded
It's almost that feeling like if you're going into it, whatever you're doing, and you're like, fuck it, okay. I don't really think like that should be the mentality of like, oh well, fuck it. Like, wait, no. That's not how business decisions should be made. There needs to be some.
But that's what I did. I literally, because I was so desperate. I'm like, do you want to be a salon manager? You want to be a receptionist? You want to be they
were like, I could help. And you're like, fuck it, okay.
Do you know how to count? You're doing the bills. Like literally.
Do you know what money looks like? Yeah. You're the CFO. No, I'm kidding.
Like, because I was just trying to do so much, and I was like, finally, I was like. And now I learned the hard way. I hired people out of just like availability, and then it was like my business didn't work for like a solid year, and I was like, and then I had to look back and be like, well, you can see exactly why it didn't work, but at the time, I think I couldn't see clearly. You know what I mean?
And when you're trying to, because I'm sure if you're listening, you're either laughing or you're cringing because you're like, oh my God, this is me. I'm gonna have you consider there's no like first right step.
Right.
Like literally, if you think about a boat and it's taking on water, it's not like, you know what, let's do which bucket or which part of the water. It doesn't matter. If you have a list of 20 tasks, do eeny, meeny, miny, mo at this point and say, fuck it, pick one and just start marking it off.
Right.
Or if you want to look and say, okay, what's going to take truly the least amount of time, just so you can start marking things off and literally just take some of that weight off of you, get some of that water out of your boat so you're not actually dying anymore.
What's so funny is like just recently I was like talking to Crystal, my salon manager, and I'm like, hey, we need to like increase our numbers and we need to like, we have more room to take on more clients and things like that. Like, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? And then I was like, you know what? I need to go through like my entire funnels. I need to go through everything because like, it's like you build a website and you're like, nailed it. I built a website. It's good for life. And then you're like, how come I'm not getting more leads? But I would encourage you to think that when you created that website or that sales funnel or whatever it is, within 6 months, you might outgrow that particular funnel and the content you have in it. Or in a year, because I was only updating mine like every couple years, right?
Yeah.
And so during this quarantine time or whatever, I was like, okay, I need to like go back in and see, almost like go through my experience like I'm a client. Would I buy this? What do I need to change? So sometimes if there's something that's not working in your business, you kind of have to like step back and go through your own process and see where you're at and then fix those things, because how much money are you losing because you're like, well, I got a website, nailed it. I got the software, nailed it. But is it working correctly to your advantage? And I realize I'm like, there's some things, you know what? The only way we can find out what's working and what's not is to try something different and to test it. And everybody thinks there's a magic solution for marketing and this and that. It's not. It's those that are willing to course correct and test and just go that figure some shit out.
And that's the crazy part, because people, they're like, but this person did, they figured this. And it's like, they figured it out by testing shit.
Yeah.
Guess what? When they started, they had no one standing there. And I think that's what it is. We always want someone to be like, tell me exactly what the result is going to be. Is it going to be a success? Yes or no? Guess what?
And then I'll decide if I want to do it.
Yeah. And guess what? Sometimes I don't fucking know. Like we figured out funnels, or you figured out funnels because Garrett made you do it. And you're like, that's dumb. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, it works. And now we're like, you know what? We're going to try a secondary funnel that's like this. Daily 4 came about because of what did and didn't work. Right. Academy came about because we were like, we can't do online training. Then we're like, let's try it. We tried it in Mastermind for a couple of years. It worked. And now we're course correcting, and even we continue to jig and adjust and redo things. And that's but I think a bravery comes from that. When you're willing to be like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure what the outcome is going to be, but fuck it, I'm gonna try it. There it is, there, fuck it. But you know what? I'm just gonna try it and see what happens and go with it, knowing you can always course correct.
I think that's why my education, I'll just speak for the education side of it, is such a phenomenal experience. Yeah. And I know that we're kind of like, people are starting to hear about us, and some like us, some don't, and whatever, and that's fine. But I do know, like, I stand behind the experience that we've created, because I've been like, that's not working, and I need to kind of like reel in my ego a little bit and ask myself, how can I make these students have a better experience? Because if they don't comprehend what I'm teaching them, that's on me. So instead of being like, well, you didn't like the system and that's on you, I'm like, no, how can I get them to fall in love with the system? How can I get them to learn it? How can I help them not just buy another certification program? And it was like years of us like adding more value to the clients, to where they got bigger results based on just like testing shit.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, I love what you just said about if you say something and someone doesn't understand or they don't fully comprehend, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't even mean you're wrong. It could just be, it needs to be reworded, reworked. It needs some kind of different learning material or a photo or something like that. And that's only come from pure testing of us being like, well, if I say it like this, there's even been times where Danielle and I are talking, you knew, we're talking to students, she'll be like, well, because this and that ABC, and they're like, ABC, but I thought it was DEF, but this and that. And I'm like, you shouldn't have fucking said that part. And literally later we're like, we can never say these 3 words together again, because we saw them go into a tizzy where we had to be like, oh, no, stop. Come back.
Reel it in.
Scrap those 3 words. Here's what we meant. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But
what's so funny is what I'll do with you a lot. I'll be like, we'll get a question from a student and you'll be like, it's in the academy. Why didn't she see it? And I'm like, we have to make this like dummy proof almost, like because I know I'm that way. I'm so bad. I'm like literally trying to do online school with Ruby, and I'm emailing her teacher every day like, where is the Wonders book? And she's like, it's the big blue box that says Wonders book. And I'm like,
you're the worst.
I am the worst.
Oh, you're that guy.
It is not like a flashing red sign like, please buy me. I'm like, I'm not interested.
And see, for me, I'm like, I bought a camera, and I'm like, let me read the manual. I got a new car 2 years ago, and I'm like, but what does the manual say about this? Like, I want to look at everything, and then if I can't figure out and I'm desperate, I'll ask, but I don't ask for help.
I don't ask for help, but I don't look very good either. So like, I remember one time with Garrett, I came down with him, I was trying to work, I was trying to do something on my blog or figure it out or edit something, I don't remember. But I remember I came down, and this was like 8 years ago, and I came down and I was like, babe, and he had an office, I was like, babe, I can't figure this out, and he finally looked at me, he's like, I'm on a sales call. And I was like, yeah, no, but can you come upstairs, because I gotta figure this thing out. And he's like, so listen, I need you to go to Google, then I need you to go to God, and then if none of those work, then come back to Garrett. And I was like,
But let me tell you, Google God Garrett is something I have lived by. If I could do that for Ani, I would, damn it.
So then I started Googling shit, and then because I'm more of like a visual learner where I want to like see it instead of, you like to read it, I like to see it. And I started Googling things, and YouTube would pop up, and I literally like self-taught myself a lot of stuff that I was currently doing with technology that I didn't know how to do just through YouTube. And even though it sucked and I was frustrated, in the end, when I learned these things, I felt so much better and so much more self-reliant and less frustrated. And it just, I think in life sometimes we have the excuse of like, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do this in my business because it's new and it's different and it's hard.
So that brings us actually to the end of our podcast. I feel like 30 minutes goes by so quick.
I think we were really fiery on this one, but I think it's because I got in a big fight with my 13-year-old daughter right before we came here. So if I was extra spicy, you're welcome. But
you know what? I think everything we said stands true. Not just if you're just an artist or if you're a business owner, you're a salon owner. Like, it doesn't matter. You know there's something. There's at least one thing on your plate right now that you look at it and you're like, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
You know what? Then at that point, truly, it doesn't matter. Start somewhere.
Just start.
Anywhere. Even today, last example, I was writing an email and I was literally, I'm like, I have all these things I need to put. I'm like, but how do I start it? I'm like, who cares? Start in the middle. I started in the middle. I'm like, here's the details you need to know. And then I was like, then I went, work backwards. I did the beginning, did the end, and it turned out beautiful, but I even didn't know how to start. I'm like, I'll start in the middle.
I do that sometimes when I'm like writing sales copy or content or whatever. I'm like, how do I want to articulate this? And I'm like, Danielle, just start, and I'll start talking about something just like we do with podcasts. Yeah. And then it like flows, and you like find your flow, and you're like, Okay.
And then once it's there, you can just edit it.
Yes, exactly.
Because you already have the frame. So,
right.
But with that, guys, thank you for being here today.
Tune in every week. We're doing them what day is it? Tuesday? This comes out Tuesday, but we film it like the week before. But you can catch it on iTunes. I have the podcast app, so it just like pops up every week, and I listen to it, and I have a bunch of other podcasts. I like to listen to it when I'm driving, when I'm walking. I always tell people, I'm like, hey, if you want to feel really productive in the morning, like go for a walk and put on a podcast, because it's like you're killing two birds with one stone. You're getting in a workout, plus you're like getting all pumped up for the day.
I do that with my workout. I'm almost doing push-ups, and I'm like, that's such a good business idea.
I run, and I'm like, this is a great podcast. And then people think I'm listening to music, and I'm like laughing at some random podcast. So anyways, tune in every week. And convention, we will be having a convention this year. We have a big convention called BMS Con 5 we're at.
5.
We are doing it. Things are slowly opening back up in Orange County. It will most likely be in November in Dana Point, California. It will be 3 days. If you're dying to come to one of our events, we will be releasing more information on that soon. So make sure that you're on my email list that you can find at bigmoneystylist.com. And again, if you want to see this podcast, go to dkwstyling.com. All right, you guys, that's it.
See ya.
See you next week.